Welcome to the Magdalene Voices, giving voice to those silenced for centuries through sacred conversations with beautiful, illuminating souls. I'm your host, spiritual business coach, mentor, catalyst, and facilitator Maria Estela. I serve spiritual entrepreneurs, Magdalene's Rising, and radiant beings just like you with the expansion and growth of yourself and your business, aligning you with your deep inner truth, bringing to life that which you're here to birth, and supporting you in expressing your soul's divine purpose through your being and your doing in this lifetime. If you haven't already, I highly encourage you to join my newsletter to stay connected and updated. You can do so on my website, mariaestela.com, where you can also find previous episodes and their show notes. And if you have ever wondered about your Magdalene connection and calling and whether you are a Magdalene, I invite you to download the free Magdalene Blueprint I've created for you. Go to mariaestela.com/AYM to get it. Today I am joined by Jessica Reid for a beautiful conversation about near-death experiences and the desire to check out of this world. Jessica is a global clairvoyant, channel, and purpose fulfillment coach. She connects and communicates with her spirit guides and many other light beings within her services to bring through enlightenment, guidance, insight, information, and empowerment from the higher dimensions to the human consciousness on a personal and collective level. Jessica loves traveling while sharing her light, purpose, gifts, and messages with the world through her online purposeful business. As always with these sacred conversations, take only what serves you and leave the rest. I understand that the topic of wanting to leave this world can be triggering. However, in my experience, it is also something that most, if not all of us, have an experience with on our awakening journey, and therefore one that is so important to share so that you and others may know that you're not alone, not now nor ever. Here is our sacred conversation. Jesse, welcome to the Magdalene Voices, and thank you for gracing us with your presence. I am very excited to have you. And we do have a couple of topics that I would like to cover, but I also have the sense that more is going to come through. So I'm curious about this. So the thing that I want to start off by asking you is, at the age of, I think it was 11, I had a near-death experience, or what I describe as a near-death experience, where I fell, and I was basically, I had a notion of being, out of my body, watching the adults. It was in a gym, and I'll include a link to the story so people can go check that out. But I was basically, I was seeing everything from someplace else, and was probably the most peaceful I have ever been. I could sense the anxiety of the adults that were running towards me because, but I was at peace. And it's a peace that I've only ever found like in deep meditation. And I think it took me more than 20, past even 25 years to realize that experience has most likely shaped my life in some form or another. So I wonder if you would share with us, if you could, like, what is a near-death experience? What happens? Why do they happen? What goes on?
Yeah, definitely.
What happens?
So, So like when I'll share from the way that I feel into it and the way that my spirit guides kind of explain it to me, and that will resonate with certain people and not with everyone. But the way that I would personally explain it from the way I feel it, I feel like in certain, I feel like there's no accident in terms of like what happened to you that kind of on a physical level may have been seen as an accident. I feel is not an accident at all, really. And I feel like when we have such intense experiences on the physical plane and in the physical level, say whether, a lot of people find when they for instance, if they have a car crash or they have something that's just like a really intense kind of
Yes.
sudden physical pain or trauma or experience that happens to them, I feel like the soul kind of in a way protects, like, we are our soul. It's like I feel like it's a kind of protection method almost to kind of like disassociate from the full intensity of either the pain or the trauma or the experience.
Yeah.
And even though there's still that etheric cord or connection, you're not disconnecting from your physical body. You're still connected. You kind of just step out of the body to just watch over and just say like, okay, you're all right, but you just don't need to be feeling this intense amount of pain or trauma right now. You can just kind of just reconnect back with your soul and be in that kind of non-physical source consciousness that is the truth of you, and just kind of allow the physical world to take care of things for a minute. Do you know what I mean? That's the way I kind of feel about it. And also with that, I feel like that's meant to happen too, in the sense of we're meant to have those awakenings while still in our life, while still, with plenty of life ahead of us, to help give us that insight as to what is this actual physical experience we're having, and how can we view it more from a soul level. How can we actually be more of an observer of our experience as opposed to being always like caught up in our experience? You know what I mean? Like I found that when I was little, I didn't have like a near-death experience like you had. Like it wasn't as I guess like intense in that way, but I found like when I was little, I'd always be at school, or sometimes just when I was walking around the house at home, and it's similar in a way, but it was more gradual. It was like I'd be in my body and say I was playing with my cat or something, just doing something in the physical world, and then it would be like, okay, I'd be there for a second, fully in that experience, and then I would step back in these like layers of consciousness and observing. So it was like, okay, I was there petting my cat, and then next minute it was like, oh, look at me, I'm petting my cat. And then it's like, and then you step back further and it's like, wait, who's thinking this thought? And I, as a kid, I would just freak out. Like no one around me knew what was going on internally, but internally I was just like, holy shit, who is asking, like, who is saying that? Who is saying, like, who is observing? And then I'd be asking, how am I observing my experience? How am I watching myself while not being in myself? And as a kid, like, on a soul level, but as a child with a human brain, it's like you start realizing that it's almost like you start realizing that your brain isn't your consciousness. There's something so much bigger, and that your brain is only like a receptor to that larger consciousness, if that makes sense. So because I would realize what I was observing and thinking on a larger, higher consciousness level, like a soul or a source level, and then I would also observe what my brain was trying to analyze out of it. So I realized that like the brain is only
it's beautiful
recepting, but the larger consciousness is observing it all. And as a child, I would get to the point where I would be so far back from my human experience that I'd just be saying to myself, I'm not a human, I'm not Jessica, but I don't know who I am if I'm not Jessica. Like as a child, it would just freak me out. And sometimes at school, I'd just run off to the bathroom and just be like, okay, what am I thinking? Like, this doesn't make sense, and I cannot tell anyone. Like, I cannot explain this. Like, it's hard for me to even explain this now as an adult. As a child, like, I would not have been able to go to my teacher and say like, oh, so I'm stepping kind of like outside of my body and into my higher consciousness, and observing that I don't actually exist only in the physical
plane. And it'd be like, and the thing that I'm left with from what you're sharing is that, I can understand how that can be traumatic and especially for a child, as you say, but I'm also left with a gratitude for us sharing this, so that others may be able to hold space for their children who are, because loads and loads and loads of children are coming through now with those exact opportunities or options, and being able to hold space for them, because we're always, it's an ever expanding circle. So we're standing on the shoulders of our forefathers and our foremothers, and we now become the fertile ground for those who come after us. So that's beautiful. I wonder, because one of the things that, again, like I said, first of all, the near-death experience gave me an understanding that there is something other than this, like you said, there's and I've never feared death, and I'm pretty sure that's why. But for a very long time, I also did not want to be here, because of that, because I knew that was an opportunity or a possibility. So why on earth would I be on earth? Like, why would I be in this physical body?
If I could just be completely free and peaceful. Yeah,
exactly. Like, why would I do that? And in your experience, why? Like, why?
Yeah, I totally understand that. Like, I went through that same, like, especially through my, like, I know it sounds so cliche, but my awakening, in terms of, like, when, because I had my, like, clairvoyant gifts and everything when I was growing up, and then I blocked them out at school, and then they started coming back to me without, like, it's like I didn't have a choice anymore. I was not allowed to block them out anymore.
Yes.
And that's what I call, like, my awakening, in terms of, like, I had like quite a good, successful life set up in the mundane world by the time I was 19. And so on the outside, it was like, oh, you just got yourself sorted. And then all of a sudden, it was like all the gifts started coming back, and I didn't have a choice to block them out anymore. And I was just feeling, like, really, really, really overwhelmed. And I would have all these, like, astral traveling, astral projection experiences, like, nearly every single night, where I would be out of my body and out exploring those other realms and connecting and communicating with spirit in all these different ways. And I got to that same point where I was like, well, hold on a minute. Like, I much prefer being out there. And that feels more real to me than this experience ever has. And I was like, why do I need to be here? Like, why would I want to be here, kind of thing. But I find that, like, that's a really important question to ask, and a really important question to be at, and, like, a really good point to be at in your life, even though to some people it might be, like, and was for me, it was, like, the worst point in my life in terms of, like, anxiety and depression and things like that. Even though it was the most awakening point of my life. And I feel like once you actually
come together, usually follow.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that breakdown to break through kind of thing. And I find, like, I definitely questioned it. I was just like, why do we even have to be in a body? Like, and I would say to people, I'd be going to energy healers and just being like, I feel so trapped. Like, I know what it's like to be out of my body. And when I'm in my body in this human experience, I feel like I'm in this shell, like, and I've just got these little peepholes through my eyes, and I'm just observing this physical world, and I feel like I'm so trapped and victim to illness, pain, emotions, like all these things. I was like, I just don't want to be here, really. And I really started, like, really disassociating from my physical body. I started, I can't even really remember. That time was such, like, that time in my life, I was out of my body so much of the time that I don't really remember a lot about my physical world from that time in my life. I actually don't remember. But what I do remember is that at one point I went to the airport to pick up my mum. She came to visit me, and I hadn't seen her in a while because I was living in a different country. And I was expecting her to come through the door and be like, Jess, and she came through the door, and I just saw this look on her face, like she just saw me and just came to me and was like, what's wrong? And I was like, what? And she goes, you're so skinny, like you're so, and I'm normally like petite, so I've never been big or anything, but, and I didn't even know it. She was like, you are so skinny, you look ill, like what is wrong?
Yeah.
And you know, she was saying to me like, your bones are all, you know, like
Yeah.
showing, and just everything, like, yeah, she just thought I was really ill,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
just wasn't even associated with it. Like, she thought I was anorexic, and
Yes. Of
but she, you know, she was in a very loving way wanting to understand like
course.
what's going on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, I don't know. And when I actually went and stood on some scales, I realized, oh yeah, I am like 10 kgs below my normal weight, which is actually small to begin with.
Yes.
I think I was 43 kgs, which is
About 80 pounds.
something like that. Yeah.
Whoa.
So I was really little, and I didn't even know it, because
No.
at that time I was out of my body so much of the time that I didn't. I feel like I must have just neglected my physical body because I was resisting it so much. Like,
Yeah.
when I think, like I said, I don't really remember a lot of memories from that time, but I must have just not been, like, I don't remember eating a lot, or
No, because you wouldn't need to. I mean, being out there, you wouldn't need,
just not your focus.
physical now.
Yeah,
So
yeah, really.
what made you come back? Like what made,
Mm-hmm,
like what,
mm-hmm,
'cause for me, I know the decision for me was,
mm-hmm,
I realized I was working with someone, and I realized that I was always living between two breaths, meaning that I,
mm-hmm,
because of the way my fall had been, it had been on an exhale. So when I had been exhaling, and I'd, lost my breath completely. And I realized, this is what, 5 years ago, or not very long ago.
mm-hmm,
And I realized that, whether I do meditation or yoga or
mm-hmm,
anything, I always love like the space between the exhale and the inhale. That's where I find my
mm-hmm.
peace. But I
Uh-huh,
also realized that I wasn't breathing properly. I wasn't
uh-huh.
I wasn't allowing myself to, quote unquote, live fully, truly.
Right.
and
Mm-hmm,
and I had to make a decision to start, like, to be here.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
what made you come back? What made you
Right. Yeah.
decide
Well,
to be here? Because I mean,
mhm,
let's be clear, some people, and I say this over and over with the show, some things may resonate and some things may not, and I want people to
mhm,
always take what serves them and leave the rest. We're talking about
yeah.
things that can be very controversial, and that's okay.
Mhm,
We're just offering our point of view. and
mhm, mhm,
and we're talking, I mean, I know that there are people who choose not to be here anymore, and that, like, in
mhm,
a
mhm,
physical sense, and in a Monday human world, that sounds like suicide. and
mhm,
and it is,
mhm.
but it's also, and I'm assuming that you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but knowing who we are as souls or
Mhm,
infinite beings, suicide is really just, it's not
mhm.
that, quote unquote, big of a deal. I don't mean to offend anyone by that, but it's just
I
not.
understand what you mean in
Yeah.
terms of like, um, I can, because I got to that point where I'd be walking down the road to go to work, and going to work at that point, because I worked at like a coffee shop in the middle. Like, it wasn't even in a shop itself, it was just like this stand thing in the middle of a shopping mall, so there was just people everywhere, and it was just crazy. And so going to work while all these things from spirit and energy and empathy and all this kind of stuff was coming back, while working in a place like that where I had to be really high paced and really focused on doing things really, really efficiently,
Yeah.
that was just like hell for me. I was just like,
Yes.
I, I, I cannot manage this amount of information, like, on all multidimensional levels at one point, and still function and focus and make a coffee. Like, it was just like, sure, I could do that now, but back then, when that all was going on, I was just like,
Yeah. No. 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 No.
um
I get
I
what.
remember I was walking to work, one day in particular. I just remember really vividly just walking to work, and I just was on the footpath, and I saw a car, that was coming in towards me on the road, just like right just next to me. And I had such a vivid thought of just like, it would just be so much easier right now, instead of actually going to work, it would be so much easier to just step out on the road and just get hit by this car and just leave.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and it sounds horrible, but it sounded literally easier. to just be able to do that and just to just get out
Yes.
and not have to deal with the whole grind, because I knew that outside of this human experience, everything is like pure source energy and just pure consciousness. And you know, there's a lot of densities sometimes to the human experience that you just want to let go of. So I totally understand when people do commit suicide, that a lot of the time, deeper level, you just know that the amount of pain you're dealing with right here, sometimes it's just not manageable, and you know that there's a release that you can get from that, and sometimes it's a better option than dealing with another day in that sense of depression or anxiety or whatever it is that's going on for you. So I don't ever blame people or put any shame on that, because some people, like, you can only do what you know, in terms of like, if you don't know how to self-heal, or you don't know how to you know, self-nurture or take care of yourself, or you don't know how to deal with what's going on internally, like sometimes that's the only option you can really think of. So
and I want to say that I know exactly where, and I can sense that there are many listeners who will be, you know, be resonating with this, who know exactly what we're talking about. And I know, because you know, I've had those exact same thoughts of like, I don't mind. I'm not sure I would have stepped out, you know, out in front of the bus, but I wouldn't have mind getting hit by the bus, you know, and that was kind of the, and it's I would say that the only thing, and this is going to sound funny, but the only thing that really kept me, or not the only thing, because I have plenty of, one of the things that really kept me from it was knowing that I would just have to do it over again. Like I would just have to come back. And that was one of the things that, like, I don't, and also, and today, of course, I look back on those like 10 years ago, and I just want to, I want to hug her and embrace her. And I think that's why we're talking about this as well, because we're sure to hit some people who are at that spot right now, and being where we're both at in our lives right now, we can say that they're like, we bring in the light, and it is through the dark night that we, you know, we must go through that in order to bring
truly, like,
learn and to bring in the light.
Exactly. And like I had, well, for me it was like, that would have been the easy way out, but at the same time, like on a deep level, I knew I was here for a reason. Like I remember even when I was 6 years old, and I would be telling my parents like these really like extravagant stories about why I was here on the earth and what I was going to do, and how I was going to return them with, you know, all of the love and the care and the luxuries and everything. Like I would have, I would grab like my little notebook, and I'd be going and like interviewing my dad and saying, okay, so once because I always knew I'd have my own business and to be really successful in it, and I'd be taking notes and saying, Dad, okay, so once I have my really successful business, what do you want? And you know, how do you want to retire? And I'd be taking all these notes, and I'd be writing down, you know, because he loves fishing and diving and all that kind of stuff. So I'd be writing down that, you know, I'm going to buy my dad a launch boat, like a huge 2 million. I went and got on the dial-up internet and looked up like, how much does it cost to buy a launch boat? $2 million. Okay. And I'd write it all down. And I'd write down my mum. I literally remember my mum saying, okay, I want to retire in a house, like a little villa type house in Italy, and with a spa outside and stuff. And, you know, I'm sure she was just playing to my imagination and, you know, going along, but I was taking it legitimately. I was like, okay, I'm writing this down.
And that's how manifestation happens. Like that's the law of attraction. That's you're calling it in, and your parents, rather than suppressing, rather playing with it. It's just amazing.
Like it was just that ever since then I've always had like a really vivid knowing of like that I'm here for a reason. I've never was able to like fully explain it, but I just felt the essence of why I was here. And so when I was at that deepest point where those, you know, I was having those thoughts, there was still that part of me that was just like, oh, but if you go, you'll miss out. You'll miss out on why you came here in the first place. Like, what's the point in being here and doing all of this growing up and learning and going through like the darkness of it in terms of like the death, what's the point in doing all that if you're going to leave now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I just knew, like, okay, I just have to keep moving. Like, I just have to keep doing the best to take care of myself and find out, like, how to actually, work with my gifts again, and not let it be overwhelming, or how to work with spirit and how to actually find my purpose. But all in all, like, when I really committed to that and, like, was reading 100 books at a time and going and seeing, like, clairvoyants myself, and getting readings and doing meditation workshops and everything like that, once I actually got, like, a glimpse of, like, oh, okay, this is why I'm here, this is what I'm going to help people with, this is what my life's going to be like how I could join the dots together as to what I saw ever since I was little.
Yes.
That's when it started just being like, okay, yeah, I'm here. And as I continued to just build that sense of connection to my soul and my purpose and why I'm here and my vision and what I really want out of life, it was like I went from, oh, I'm trapped in this body and I'd rather not be here. Why am I here? To, oh my God, I'm so lucky. And, just like, oh my God, like, boy, girl, this body is so legit. Like, this body is so cool. And I just even getting to the point where I was like, oh, like, I just sometimes sit and just watch how I could move my hands just by my consciousness, and just be like, oh my God, I've got this incredible vehicle to just be on the earth and to touch and to taste and to smell and to, like, experience everything in, like, a high definition, and to just I just started seeing the earth as, like, this playground. I was like, oh my gosh, now I totally understand, like, from my soul consciousness level, watching the earth, watching and seeing all the endless potentials as to how I could come in and enjoy and add purpose and add to and contribute to the expansion of the earth and human consciousness. I can totally understand it. I'm like, oh, like, yeah, why would I want to just sit on the sideline and watch? Like, I would want to just dive right in,
Exactly.
and feel it all and experience it all and give and receive and, like, expand and just explore all the potentials and remember what it is like from a soul consciousness level, but then bring it into the human form. I was like, oh my God, it's this playground. And so,
and there's such a pleasure in that, like the experience of, because I'm like, I feel like we're not twins at all, but it's like like when you begin to, I call it blending the magical with the mundane and the spiritual with the matter. Like, it's like it becomes this dance. It becomes this. Like,
so
it's so satisfying, like, so, but not satisfying, not like going out and buying a new bag or a piece of, like, there's like a, not that because it's not that I don't like pretty things or anything. There's just this deep satisfaction that is staying. When we do those blends, because I experience it in sessions where it's like, it's so I want to, because there's two things that I want to dive into, but I'm trying to figure out a great segue into her, but it's like we'll just dive right in, because for me, having had that near-death experience, because I'm born and raised in Denmark. We're a quote-unquote Protestant country. We're one of the only industrialized countries where we have like a state religion. So everybody who's born here is born a Christian, quote-unquote, if you believe that that's what it is. But never. So we, at the age of 14, we're like, it's very normal to get confirmated, and I was as well. But there was something that didn't make sense to me, and I think I've shared this on the show before. But one day I asked my minister, and I said, okay, so we were doing these trainings or preparations, and I asked him, so you say that there's always a new tomorrow, and God always forgives, and he's like, good student, like, yes, you got it. And I asked him, but if God always forgives and there is always a new tomorrow, how can there be a hell? And I don't remember what he said or he replied, but I just remember thinking, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, and for the longest, I abandoned, quote unquote, God. Like,
Mm.
and now I know
The
it's the
concept
idea,
of.
it's the religion's idea of God that I abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I had, I knew Mary Magdalene, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
as, the whore from the Bible, that Jesus, whatever, and yada yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
However, over the past year and a half that I've been doing the show, and even further back,
Mm-hmm.
she's been showing up, and of course she's part of the show. The show's called
Mm-hmm.
Magdalene Voices. But
Mm-hmm.
I know that for you, she was one of your first guides. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that also that you're hesitant to speak about it. And we're going to dive into that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But would you share with us, how did she show up for you?
Mm-hmm.
And like, when did you begin working with her? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how did it happen? Because I know she shows up for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
She, or the energy, shows up for a lot of people. So did she drag you
Mm-hmm.
into the game? Like, how did it happen?
Um, I remember when I was at that point, when I was like searching for every, person to do a reading for me or to do energy healing. Like I was just exploring all these people and all these holistic ways of healing.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to this lady, and I just happened to like find her card from someone. It was like really random. I had to drive like an hour and a half out of town to go meet her on like this, I think it was like a bus that she was like a heavy bus that she was living in. It was quite cute, but it was just the most kind of random thing, basically, as opposed to walking down the main street and going to like a set up place. It was just like a really random thing, but I just kind of went. And she, I don't even know how to explain it, but she just basically said to me, she said, I'm going to bring in Mary Magdalene, because she said that's the person I work with, and I'm just going to hold your hands, and I'm just going to bring her energy through to you, and you are just going to experience what you experience. She basically was just saying, I don't do anything. I'm just going to bring.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm just going to
Being the
bring it
master.
through. You're just gonna experience what you experience. And I was like, okay. And because at that time I was in such a deep surrender, because I was just like, anything. I was just like, why not, kind of thing. And so I held her hands, and I just completely surrendered to it. And I had like, I felt like it was out of a movie when someone gets like hit by a lightning bolt or something. Like as soon as I held hands with her, and I saw her just close her eyes and just bring it through, and I felt it, and my whole body was like, it just felt like I was like being, almost like electrocuted or something, but in a really good way. And I was just like, holy shit, like, and I just closed my eyes and tuned into it more, and I could see like this. I just remember like really clearly seeing like this third eye, and I could tell that I could literally feel my third eye being like opened and activated, and just seeing completely clear. And there were other things, like all these visuals going on. I have really bad, like I mentioned earlier, my memories from that time are really all over the place. But I just remember it was a really, really amazing experience. But yeah, I remember the third eye, and I remember the intense energy and certain things coming through. And then when she finished, she just said, okay, so just let me know what you experienced. And we just talked about it a little bit. And yeah, I kind of just walked away like going like, I don't even know what just happened. Like, kind of thing, because everyone else that I'd been to, they were like, I'm going to do this and then do that and blah, 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 blah. But she was more just like, just gave me this really intense energy, and I just had to kind of just surrender to what was happening and going on like all my multi-dimensional levels. And then that happened, and I kind of was just like, for a while I was just like thinking back on it and just being like kind of like, that was really intense. And then so it was like the first time I had ever really even heard of her or connected with Mary Magdalene's energy. And then and then a little while later, I was really interested in like really getting to know my spirit guides, because I knew that my spirit guides had been around ever since I was little, because I could feel them in my room and everything like that. But I wanted to like get to know them better, and I wanted to get more of a communication going and like a bit more channeling happening.
Yeah.
And so I went to someone who was like a full trance channel, and this person, yeah, they were doing like a full trance channel for me, and they were saying to me, your guide that is with you is Mary Magdalene, and it was explaining it to me and everything like that, and it all really really resonated with me. And then after he came out of the channeling, and just as like a person, we talked about it a little bit, and he goes, oh, but don't tell anyone that it's Mary Magdalene, because people will judge you, and you know, people will have their blah blah blah. And I was like, I just didn't really know how I felt about it, so I just, part of me was like, stuff that, but I don't care what anyone thinks. and then the other part of me was like, I don't want to step into saying it in a way that people are just going to have an immediate perception of their own and not understand my personal connection.
Yes.
And when I did like work with Mary more and more and more in my daily life and started channeling her and things like that, I realized like, yeah, it actually does resonate with me more to just call her Mary, because that represents for me my personal connection with her and how she guides me. And it's not about what her description is by anyone else's, you know. And for me, because I've never been in any type of religion or read the Bible or anything like that, I don't necessarily consider that story to necessarily be true or not true, if you know what I mean, in terms of what it says about her. So I just didn't want that to be the perception of,
I get it, because
my personal connection.
Because one of the things, so first of all, a lot of the first, and there will be other as well, episodes deal with her story, because her true story, because what I believe to be her true story,
right?
Because there are, because you and I both know that there is there's an awakening happening, and there are people, there are many people within religion who don't understand, like I did. I was like, that doesn't make, like, it doesn't make sense. But
you can feel like the sense of what's truth and what's more like a human made perception.
Exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I for me, having been in religion, well, I wouldn't say, I call it la Christian, because I was never Orthodox, or like we were never going to, it wasn't like a Sunday ever, but still the remnants or the structure was there, and it was enough for me to be confused or whatever. And I want to say that, so part of it, and many of the episodes on the show has dealt with or deals with trying to bring about another image of her, or of her story, and then people can basically, sit with her and find out what they believe are true for them. I don't want to, I don't want to stuff truth down anyone, like my truth down their throats. But the thing, in our world, and I completely understand why you wouldn't want to like share, because we tend to sensationalize, and there are people who like claim to be the one and only channel, and blah 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 blah, and it's and then it becomes, for me, it becomes more of an ego thing rather than an essence thing. So you not quote unquote necessarily feeling the need to share, because I'm the same. I don't feel the need to share who my guides are, or because it's an intimate relationship that we have.
It's like the message is more important than
exactly
emphasizing who it's coming from, or what the description of and any description of them from any text that comes from outside of my personal connection with her. And I just always, like, I always find that, just for me personally, I just find that she's just got this really pink, like motherly, just really, really nurturing, always looking out for me, my highest good, and always like
Yeah.
just always encouraging me towards my highest desires and exactly why I'm here. Like this, just consistent. And yeah, I think of her as just like this ultimate mother of mine in spirit that is just, like the essence of a mother that always looks out for your highest good, and always encourages you to reach your highest potentials. And so, yeah, that's how I personally connect with her. And I always, like, she always nurtures my inner child and helps me nurture my inner child and self-love. And that's what she brings through for other people as well. And so, yeah, I've always felt a call to share her essence and channel that. And I tell plenty of people that my main guide is Mary, but I've never felt called to, like you said, like sensationalize it in a way of like, oh, my guide is Mary Magdalene and blah, blah, blah. Like it's just never felt
No.
right for me, because it just doesn't resonate to stick it to
No.
a description that just doesn't resonate for me.
What do you think? Because I know that she's showing up, and for me, so for me, Mary is just one of the Magdalenes. To me, there were
Right.
there were both many who walked with Yeshua when they walked the earth.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a group of consciousness, or a group like a soul group, that are the Magdalenes, and to me,
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones like you and I and all of those listening who have or
Mm-hmm.
are making I call it the journey from the mind into the heart, like those.
Mm-hmm.
And many will not even know who Mary is or have any idea of Mary. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
or know that they were Magdalene. It's just a matter of heart
Yeah. Yeah.
and I know that she is, because I am blessed to get to meet a lot of them and you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that she and they show up for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
But it's hard to put into words. I feel like it's in the essence of it is it's that it's that it's that unexplainable on a human level, like unconditional love from that pure source energy,
Mm.
that is just always wanting to come through to us here in this human experience and just give us that like we were kind of talking about earlier, that realization that it is such a blessing for you to be in this human experience. You're here for a reason. There's so much more joy that you're meant to be experiencing right now, and like calling us back into that. Because the way that I kind of feel it is that, like, whether you're talking about spirit guides or angels or star beings, like I just always get the sense from them that they're just watching us and just being like, oh my god, like this is like, they're just watching and they're just like, oh, you're so blessed, just like, I'm so excited for you, you've got so much ahead of you.
Yes.
Like we're just your biggest cheerleaders kind of thing. And I think they find it funny when we as humans look up at them, we're kind of like, like, you're so lucky, you just get to be floating around in the ethereal realms and just pure, consciousness, and they're just like, no, you get like the real deal. You get to experience like so much more, even if it might be a bit of a roller coaster. You get the thrill of the ride, and so I always think it's like this kind of funny giggling thing that goes on between the human collective and the higher realms and the non-physical beings. Like, and I feel like we've always got this soul agreement, so to speak, that is almost like an unspoken thing, that they will always be calling us into our soul's path and our highest purpose, and that we will be here to put it into momentum or action or into the physical realm. Like
it is through us.
It
is through us that the transformation happens. Being the intuitive, the channel, the clairvoyant that you are, what would you say, like, if someone has experiences with the Magdalenes or Mary or whoever shows up for them, how would you suggest that they strengthen their connection or
Mhm.
expand it, or
Mhm.
because to me it's like the connection is always there, but it's
Mhm.
like a muscle. The more we work it, the more
Yeah.
it expands. And I know that you have experience with that, so I wonder if you would,
Mhm.
coming up to a close, so I was wondering if you would share
Mhm.
how how can we strengthen that muscle.
Definitely. I always like emphasize whether it's with Mary or whether it's with your own personal spirit guides, or if you're wanting to connect with archangels, like it all comes down to this really um, foundational level of it's a game of energy, frequency, and vibration and wavelength, right? So it's like if you want to connect with them more, strengthen your connection, strengthen your ability to communicate and receive guidance, it always comes into making sure you're raising your energy, frequency, and vibration into their wavelength first and foremost. Because what I find like the biggest kind of thing is where people get kind of tripped up is when they want to connect with, say, Mary or their guides or a particular archangel, and they might not be in a particularly high wavelength themselves, and then but from that space asking like, just tell me the answer, or just give me the guidance, or what do I need to do
Yes,
right now in my
yes,
life, and then they're like, oh, don't hear anything back, there's no communication, they're not real, they don't love me, they
yeah.
don't want to help,
And they're standing
you
there yelling, like,
know, from their wavelength.
yes,
And yeah, I feel like so many people get tripped up and not first and foremost getting into resonating energy, frequency, vibration, or getting into that wavelength of connection first and foremost, because I always see it like they are always there consistently with that guidance and infinite information.
yes,
um, they will not come down through the wavelengths for
yes,
us and make it all easy on us. It's like they will call us up.
yes,
So when you're getting all those signs, or you're feeling that draw to connect with your spirit guides, or you're feeling that calling to connect with Mary or archangels or whoever, that's them calling you up through the wavelengths, calling you to raise your energy, frequency, vibration, and wavelength, so that you can get up to their level of consciousness, so that they can, instead of trying to scream it, they can just easily communicate with you, right?
yes,
It's just like a radio. If you're wanting to listen to a particular station, a particular broadcast, and that's on 105 FM and you're on 94 FM, and you're sitting there going, why can't I hear
yes,
it?
yes,
Why is it all
yes,
fuzzy, or
yes,
why doesn't it make
yes.
any sense, or why can't it, like, why isn't it clear, why can't I?
And I want to say that they don't, of course, I don't think, well, it's not to say that I've ever had, well, I haven't experienced them yelling, but I've experienced spirit bitch slapping, like, wake up, like, we've already told you this, like it's, but
Come
that's
on.
like, that comes after. It's not the first thing that starts to happen. It's like,
Yeah,
we've told you this, and now
okay, a
it's
bit of a
time to
kick up the
like,
bum.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so I have
Switch
experienced
it
them
up.
being very like firm with me, but it's not like the first. And to me, for me, um, because we're so, like, we're on in the third dimension, we're in like physical matter. One of the things that I find is, it's about uncovering or unveiling all of this shit. Like I said, we already have the connection, and we have the dial in us, but we need to clear our shit in order to be able to,
Right,
bring
that's it.
in the light. Because
Yeah.
I see it as both ways. Like, once we clear the shit, then we can actually hear what they're trying to communicate,
Yeah,
um, and
exactly.
say. Um,
Yeah, definitely. And I always say, like, to people that the actual, once you're in their wavelength and you're resonating and you're truly surrendering and trusting, communication is very natural and easy.
yeah,
But if you're doing it from a lower wavelength,
yeah,
you're going to be like, no, that shit's hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get clear communication. I only get bits and pieces and it doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, that's okay. Don't blame yourself. But just listen, just pay more attention to your personal energy, frequency, vibration. Raise your wavelength first
Yeah.
before you expect to get this amazing clear communication going on, because
Yeah.
it makes sense, right? You
Yeah.
have to get into their wavelength in order for it to be clear.
And I don't know, perhaps it's the, because there has been this, I don't know what, if I want to call it spiritual bypassing, but it's like, there has been this like white light, hallelujah kind of thing about, and no one really talked about doing the work. Like it's not, it requires work. It requires a dedicated, consistent effort.
Yeah.
And does it become easy? Yes. Like like to tell people,
Yeah.
yes, it does become easy, and it can be easy.
Yeah.
I know that
the work is raising up into the wavelength first and foremost. Yeah, that's our work.
Yeah.
And then as humans, and then the actual communication from that point is easy. It is easy.
Yes. And the seeds are there. And I think that's what makes us continue without knowing that we know that we know, but we don't know how we know. So we just continue following, whatever, because the seeds are always there.
Definitely. And I would say also, like, particularly just with Mary, if people are wanting to connect with her in particular, I found, like, just from my own personal experience, that like when she was coming through, I found it really hard myself to be in like just throughout my day to day, because I was still a bit overwhelmed and everything. It was hard for me to be in like a consistent high vibration, but I would just put aside time, like once a day or once every couple of days, and I'd just go in my room, I'd close the blinds, I'd close the door, and I would just sit, and I would just go through a sense of like just going through my gratitudes, and really kind of getting more into a sense of like love consciousness as opposed to fear, because obviously like fear is the lowest vibration and love is the highest, essentially. And so I would move more into love and gratitude and everything like that, and I would feel myself being like, I'd be like, I know I'm close, I know I'm getting there. And when I would feel that sense of like, I'm close, I would then ask Mary, I'd say, please infuse me with your energy to help me like get that extra, just to raise up that bit more. And when I would feel her come in, because I had made that commitment and I had made that, with all my effort, I was really focused on being as much in love consciousness as possible. And then with a pure intention, asking her to assist me in that, I would just feel my whole body just fill with her energy. And I would just feel the sense of like, I could just imagine myself sitting there just going, like, just this incredible energy of just love and just this pink, like just this really, this feminine, loving, motherly energy.
Yeah.
And it would just be that last bit that would just kind of really help me get into that space, and I would just really feel her, and then the whole channeling experience is a whole nother story. It'd take too long. But that's when I really started feeling her coming through.
I want to point out one of the key things that I think you just shared there, and that was the because love shows up in many different forms, like compassion, caring, kindness, whatever, and not whatever, but that's, and I think one of the key pieces you shared is that even though it was frustrating, even though you felt irritated or whatever you sensed, you also had you chose love,
like an intention
of I'm choosing this, I'm choosing to be kind and compassionate with myself and caring, even though I don't feel like I am doing this right or am enough. And for me, that is crucial, and it's key, because that, I like to say that choosing love is easy, it's all the steps that comes after that, like when it becomes irritating or frustrating or depressing, or like those are the times that and that is actually, for me, that's where the raising of the vibration happens, because when we choose to, again, infuse that. And that's not to say like we don't like, I don't like to suppress anything, so feel your feelings, that's not it, but also infuse them. So I think that's a key point. We could go on.
Yeah, we could go on.
Do you have any last words, or because to me, I feel like, even though there's things that we haven't talked about, I feel like I'm pretty sure that this will be just as beautiful a transmission as all the other ones have been. Do you have any last words?
Yeah, I get the same feeling where I feel like there's a million things we could still talk about. Like I could go all into like the whole experience of channeling with her and everything like that. But I do feel like it's kind of like gotten to the essence of what we were meant to bring through today. And yeah, I just do feel like just adding to that last bit is just when you're really wanting to connect with either a spirit guide or Mary or whoever you feel called towards connecting with, I always found that when I had that intention, make your level of commitment as much as you can to show up and like really show up for them, make space for them, and then also call upon them, welcome them in, like kind of hand over to them in a way of like, I surrender to you, I trust you, please work with me, kind of thing, and just truly actually surrender to it. Just allow yourself to feel what comes through. Like I remember when I started doing that, I would feel her come through, and then I would feel my body start just like moving in all different ways, and my head would be like bobbling and things like that, and even though my mind was going like, what am I doing? Like
yes.
Going on, like I'm really happy that I closed the curtains and shut the door right now. But at the same time, I was like, this just feels like what I'm meant to be doing right now. And I learned that, like, in hindsight, later on when I really got into the channeling, I could really look back on it and realize that she was like warming up the muscles and the parts of my vessel on both a physical and an energetic level that she needed to energetically like clear and start working with, so that when it came to actually channeling and putting it into words and sentences and everything like that, she knew how to work with me, and I understood how to just surrender to her as well. Like, it was really interesting. But yeah, I think just make your commitment as much as you can, call upon them, surrender, and just allow yourself to experience what your unique individual experience is, because it's not going to be the same as everyone else's, or so definitely just feel like that's the best thing that you can do, and let go of like the human mind stuff. Just feel into it and follow it. Definitely.
Jessie, thank you for sharing, and thank you for being with us today. I am honored and grateful that you chose to grace us with your time, and I am sure that I speak on many of the listeners when I say thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really love this. This is one of my favorite sessions ever, because I can feel that you're really like bringing through the genuine, purpose of co-creating like this and sharing with others. So thank you so much for holding that space.
You're making me cry on TV. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
That is what I had for you in today's episode of the Magdalene Voices. For all of the deeds and the details, find the show notes on my website, mariastella.com. Know that I would love to hear how it resonated with you and what you got from it. So tag me on Instagram or leave me a comment on either my website or YouTube. Finally, if it served you, please take a moment to share it with a friend or on social media. God bless.